Alright, I'm Michael Lapp. I enjoy doing music, I enjoy listening to music, I enjoy helping people, and I believe that everybody should have a second chance.
My name is Amanda, and I have a 6-year-old daughter, and we like to play video games and go shopping and go hiking.
Okay, well, my name's Adam Courtwright. I'm a resident of Jamestown. I've lived here all my life except for 2 years in Oswego, New York. I went to school there for 2 years, got my bachelor's degree in broadcasting, and because of that, I'm a volunteer at the local radio station here in Jamestown, WRFA-LP. Volunteer my time there on the radio, and political activist.
Hi, my name is Michael Keeney. I'm a former teacher.
My name is Sherry Lawson. My son's name was Stephen Carter. Stephen was a great kid. He loved school, very, very smart. Had been going to college and really liked school. He liked a lot of sports. He played a lot of sports as a younger kid and stuff, and did really well at that.
So why Jamestown?
Well, I would suggest to you that it's become prominent nationwide, that this isn't a Jamestown problem, it's a national problem. And I think what happened is we got into it relatively late. If you look at other communities, they were dealing with this in bigger cities much earlier.
Jamestown, unfortunately, is not immune to the nationwide epidemic that the United States is experiencing. We've had illegal drug issue in this community, as this nation has for decades and generations.
There's a lot of people who are talking about it and have been talking about it for a number of years. And I'm talking specifically about the prescription drug and heroin. You know, we started talking about this as a county early in 2014. And that was a call to action at that point.
It's everywhere. It's not just Jamestown. I think a lot of focus here is because we're in the media. We're very vocal about it. We try to be open, keep the community informed of what's going on here. So I know at least in Chautauqua County, there's a lot of focus on the city of Jamestown. But the reality, it's a regional issue, it's a state issue, it's a national issue.
Things go in cycles. And I guess I have the ability to see the cycles because I've been in this position for 30 years. That things change, but then they're still the same. Every few years something new comes along. Every few years something newer comes along and pushes that out. But the same basic problems are still here.
Jamestown is at the crossroads. North, south, east, west, we're here. We're part of the corridor coming to the whole northeast, right out of Mexico and up through. So everything passes through Jamestown. It's also got a very depressed economy. A lot of people out of work. But that's not what got them started, but that's what keeps them going. And with the lack of treatment opportunities that we have here, it's just snowballing. You know, more people getting hooked every day, and the people that have been on it for a while not getting off of it because they have no place that they can go long term here.
I actually didn't even start with anything until I was 21. I was a complete teetotaler. I didn't drink, I didn't use any drugs, but I also didn't really have much of a social life. So I noticed a correlation between getting drunk and no longer being socially inhibited. It sort of opened me up. And as long as it was on the realm of recreation and having a good time and something you did on the weekends, there was no problem with it. But unfortunately, over time, you do begin to notice that those things that are helping you become more social and less inhibited become more and more a part of your life, and they begin to take over your life.
In ways, I guess, well, obviously I hid many things from family and friends. I've lots of jobs, few relationships, anger. I've went through a little bit of everything, and unfortunately, using drugs to, make me feel what I wanted to feel rather than what I was feeling. Obviously those things just took right off, and from smoking to drinking to experimenting with marijuana to going to in college to cocaine, mushrooms, acid, anything short of putting a needle in my arm.
Probably when I'd say around 19 years old. So about 5 years ago, 6 years ago is when it really started coming on in my life. I mean, I always did stuff before, like the usual, just like smoking pot and stuff and drinking on the weekends or whatever, but that's when it really got worse. I was taking pills, and then when they weren't enough or available, I couldn't find them anymore. And then so I wanted to not be sick, so I just went from there straight to the strongest thing I could find. I didn't think I had an issue. I thought I could quit, if I felt like it. I just didn't want to quit. And it wasn't until I started realizing that, when I didn't do it, I got really sick, that I thought I had a problem, but I thought it would be a lot easier. I thought it wasn't that big of a deal,
Addiction came into my life from a range of things. I mean, it started when I was around 18 years old, I think it was. I had some major issues with stress. I had depression issues, and I was going through some problems with my family. I had been separated from them for 14 years. And I needed something to deal with the stress and with the depression, with the pain. And honestly, the only thing, it kind of started really weird, because I had a friend that, they asked me if I wanted to try this thing that they had. And what they had actually ended up being addicting. And I ended up getting so hooked on it to the point where I didn't even know who I was myself. I was doing things that I could never see myself doing. I never could see myself becoming addicted to something. I never could see myself having that happen, because I thought with my upbringing, I had a pretty strict upbringing, I tried to do good, my parents tried to teach me right. But that's the thing, is that it could happen to anyone. It could happen to your family, it could happen to your son, it could happen to your daughter. Everybody is only human.
But what I'm also hearing from people is a recognition that there's folks in this town that need help. And we're supporting those that are on the front lines that have the responsibility to provide that help, and we're going to continue to do that. The problem has grown. The best way to address it is hopefully to cut off the demand for the product, or to reduce the demand for the product. But equally important is to go after and disrupt and close down and drive out those that are bringing the stuff into the community in the first place.
The mayor has directed the city police force, and he's been supported by the council on the supply side, to go after these guys, go after them big time, bring the book down on them. And so to the great credit of the Jamestown Police Department, it's thoroughly professional. These guys are sharp and been catching these guys left, right, and center. And of course, it gets in the newspaper and it gets on the local radio, as well as it should. And so it makes it look worse than it is, but I often point out to people that actually means it's getting better.
Here in the city of Jamestown, we've done several things. The first thing that we did was created our own task force, because our focus, we had, again, with limited resources, our focus had to become the city of Jamestown. Kind of demonstrate what we've done. In 2012, we executed 47 search warrants. 2013 it was 54, and then last year was 76. So there's been a steady increase, and again, that kind of mirrors what we're seeing nationwide. With with our seizures with heroin was 119 bags in 2012. 13 was 826, I believe, and then last year we were well over 5,000. And those are the numbers that our drug investigators have seized. That doesn't include what we take in our regular patrol division and day-to-day enforcement initiatives.
As a society, we have gotten to a place where, we jail more people than anywhere else, basically, and it's not necessarily helpful. They've talked too about the idea that the people who end up staying there in jail are the people who can't afford bail. The drug dealers, who are the ones who really should be there, they can afford bail, so they're out very quickly.
People do not understand what addiction is. We still run into people who think it's a moral issue, not understanding what's happening in the brain, that it really is something that goes on in your brain.
One of the issues that I learned, to my surprise, where there are actually structural brain changes that occur when someone is addicted. With the use of drugs, the pleasure center of the brain, which is part of the older brain, is given a stimulus with the drug, and dopamine and other neurotransmitting hormones are generated, and the limbic system, which connects the old brain and the new brain, is in top gear, and there are structural changes in the brain, which is a really frightening thing.
I think that there are a lot of issues around substance abuse, and we need to really look at substance abuse as a public health issue. So we need to look for a public health solution. Prevention is a difficult, complex, and comprehensive effort. So preventing alcohol, tobacco, other drug use is a very complex and difficult task. So I think over time, we've developed a culture that is more accepting of use and more accepting of some of the consequences that come with that, until they get to a point that there's more safety issues, more criminal activity, and more people ultimately dying from substance abuse.
The pleasure sensation in somebody who's frontal lobe, like who knows that they shouldn't be doing that and they know it's wrong, that gets canceled out. And so they're sort of living a lie to themselves. They don't even realize what's happening. They may be lying, they may be cheating, they may be stealing to support the habit. The sad thing is one needs more and more and more to get the same sensation. So it's a never-ending bad cycle that leads to a lot of very bad things. Of course, the disruption of relationships, maybe the loss of a job, maybe the loss of a marriage, maybe the loss of a life.
Like when I started stealing from my family, I started stealing money, I started selling all my stuff that I had. That's when I started realizing that, yeah, I do have a problem, but I just didn't want to quit then. I just didn't want to. I didn't think that I could have fun again without doing it. I thought it was just the only way I could enjoy myself.
Addiction, for me, had to wait until I found the drug that really sucked me in to the point where if I didn't have it, I noticed that my life could not continue the way it had before.
When I got to college and I have all this freedom, I guess in a way came out of my shell, but not in a way that was a positive way, because I used those things to enable me to talk to girls more openly and freely, and I didn't really care. And especially if you get them to laugh and you get them to smile, you're thinking whatever you're doing is working. So whatever you did, keep doing it. And that's what I did for 22 years. And
at first they didn't know. Eventually they caught on and they knew. They were upset with me. They tried to get me help, and I got better for like a month or two, and then it just came back again. I just couldn't escape it. I just wanted it more. So they did anything they could, but I don't think they knew what to do anymore.
They thought they weren't helping.
Yeah, they gave up hope that there was something they could do. They just trying to be there the best they could. And they tried to, talk to me, but it was me that was so against wanting to hear it. I didn't want to listen to them at all.
I found that I didn't need alcohol to go to work. I didn't need amphetamines to go to work. I didn't need cocaine to go to work. Those are just fun things that were kind of sideline things. But when I was introduced to prescription opiates, of course, many people may know that they cause a physical tolerance. And I remember one time I was working about 5 years ago, and I had been using oxycodone pills, just little 5 milligram pills, just to get through the day, and they were circulating around at work. It didn't seem like a big deal. And one day, I didn't have them, and I went to work, and I noticed that I just couldn't concentrate. I couldn't concentrate on my work. My job was emailing customer service. It was customer service representative, responding to emails. And an hour into it, I couldn't continue reading. I was just so agitated. I didn't know why. And it was later I realized that I was unable to concentrate now unless I had an opiate in my system.
I was addicted to crack cocaine. And it was something that I never saw myself doing. And here's another thing that I noticed is that before I became addicted to crack cocaine, I used to make fun of crackheads. And because I never thought it could happen to me. And sure enough, I tried some crack. And I got literally instantly addicted to it. And it was to the point where I felt out of control. I felt like my life was spiraling out of control, and I really saw no end to it. And I'm really thankful that I was able to overcome it, because it's a serious addiction, and it's not necessarily a choice. I may have made the choice originally. I had the opportunity to say no. But once the chemicals get into your bloodstream, then you don't necessarily have the chance to just say no to it.
Unfortunately, it may work in the very beginning, in the get-go, but it all catches up, and what it does to you in the interim time, it's anyone's call. No one knows. You get what you get, and some of us aren't given, a pretty road to go down later on.
I learned when Dr. David Withers, who was an addiction specialist who spoke at the first drug forum, he pointed out something that he uses as a teaching tool, and he says that addiction is a hole in the soul through which the cold north wind blows. And that's sort of a, how would you say it, a very meaningful way to describe the problem.
It cuts across income lines, race lines, gender lines. It's our problem, and I think one thing we got to do is we got to own it. Even if we don't know where we're going with it, we just got to say it's our problem. Just like we said unemployment's our problem, economic development's our problem, addiction's our problem, even if no one in your family has ever been touched by it.
So that's what all these are. These are the same thing, except this is raw heroin. This is unpackaged and most likely uncut, which means it's pure heroin. It hasn't been cut with a Cutting agent, like sometimes they use pancake mix or powdered sugar, so anything to dilute it down to make more money.
Yeah.
So they're buying it raw. They're taking this much cutting agent, doubling their product, and then selling it.
Well, the raw heroin could kill you.
Yes, this would. If you took a dose of this equal to the size of that, you'd probably die. I'm pretty much guarantee you'd die. If you had fentanyl, what we're seeing is powder's not brown, it's more white than brown. So
fentanyl would do that?
Fentanyl, what we're finding is the fentanyl is white colored and not brown like heroin.
Yeah. The view in the community, however, is since there's an uptick in warrants, uptick in arrests, uptick in all the activity, the view is that the problem's getting worse, not better.
Well, I think that's a pretty realistic view at it. I've said this, that I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And until we start addressing the treatment side of it, I think that's going to hold true.
It's happening in every walk of life. There is not a community within this area of the state. There's not a community in this country, whether it's poverty-stricken urban area or wealthy suburb or struggling rural area, that is immune from this nationwide epidemic. And there needs to be national input, state input, local input from both the public, the private, and the not-for-profit sector. And I think that that's what we're starting to see more and more so here in Jamestown, a community coming together as we've done on other fronts to address the issue.
It's not a police problem, it's a community problem, and if we don't all take responsibility for it, it won't get done. So I think there's a lot more attention being paid to it. And I think also a lot of people have had this affect friends, relatives across the board, regardless of their status in life. And if you see somebody get destroyed by drugs or alcohol, it sharpens your awareness, and you just don't want to see that happen again because it's dreadful. It destroys families, and people are concerned, and we got to stop that.
This is not a law enforcement issue. This is a community issue. There's so many different components involved in this. On the enforcement side, we're going to continue what we have been doing. We're going to continue to target drug dealers and send the message, you're not welcome here. Because they're in neighborhoods, which creates a whole new other set of issues. You have associated neighborhood issues, and anytime there's any drug activity, whether it's heroin, cocaine, even marijuana, you have associated crimes that come along with it, whether it's larcenies, burglaries, assaults, and even some of the robberies that we experienced last year, the CVS, Rite Aid, and some of the 7-Elevens. So, that's the other part of the conversation. So we don't want those individuals in our city. We don't want them in our neighborhoods. It creates, neighborhoods that people don't want to be part of anymore. And again, that's just one small component of a larger issue. As far as treatment goes, that's not my area of expertise, but I've attended enough drug forums and listened to speakers. One of the things that we are lacking in our area, and I'll say Chautauqua County, is long-term treatment. And those are some of the areas that need to be addressed.
People say, oh no, there's plenty of long-term treatment facilities out there. There are treatment facilities in Buffalo area, long-term, 90 days, 6 months, whatever. But you can't access them because they may have 3-year waiting lists to get into. Or they only want to take, the people from Erie County, because that's who pays for these places, get first bids on them. So somebody from Chautauqua County is going to keep getting bumped back down. We need a long-term treatment facility here, year-long.
And one of the saddest thing I learned at a drug forum was during a break when a mother of a son who had overdosed and died told me that when this young man went to a clinic out of this city, somewhere else, and he was denied entrance. In other words, he wanted to get off of heroin, and he was denied entrance because he didn't test positive for it. So this poor child goes out and gets a hit of heroin, so he's going to test positive so he can be admitted. Now, this is a travesty, you know, as far as I'm concerned. And we've heard so many stories of addicts who are ready. They're ready to get off of it, but the system isn't set up to take them right off the bat. You have to care for these people when they are ready, you know, not when you're open.
Until we get some real political courage, not looking to spend money, just political courage to step up and try something new and innovative and get people to work together, we're not going to solve this problem. People are going to continue to die. We're going to lose a whole generation because people getting felonies can't get federal loans to go to school. They're not going to get jobs. We're creating another whole class of welfare people. It's going to totally destroy the economy we have here, as well as people's lives on top of it. And what it takes is some will, you know, some real political will to change this.
As sad as it is, we have to recognize that we have huge gaps in the system. See, the systems we have now haven't caught up with the reality of what's going on today. I mean, organizations and agencies and funding streams from the state or federal government were set up a long time ago. I mean, they're not brand new organizations. So that the things that are happening now, especially with the impact of insurance company, and I say, this is a personal opinion, their drive to save money, we are not taking care of the issues that we have in a perfect way. And of course, we want a perfect world in everything, but there are more gaps in this system than there are in any other system.
This all started on Mother's Day of last year. I had been at my mother's house for Mother's Day and was coming home, and I got a call from my neighbor saying that they had found Stephen unconscious. And so I rushed right home, and my other son is the one who had found him. The ambulance was there. They had used the Narcan on him and brought him back and then took him to the hospital. From what my other son had said, that he had only been doing it for about 5 months. He had told him, you know, that he should really talk to me about it and that he was trying to get off of it and stuff, but it was really hard. So we were at the hospital, and 4 hours later, once his vital signs and stuff had stabilized, they just gave him some paperwork, and he was free to leave the hospital. They gave him paperwork as far as going up to Jones Hill the following day for rehab and stuff, and I had taken him there, and they had done like an intake with him. Then he came back 2 weeks later for another appointment, and they had done just some follow-up vital signs and talking a little about his addiction and stuff. And after that, he didn't see a doctor for 2 more weeks after that, so it was a total of 4 weeks before he had actually seen a doctor after his first overdose. And when he saw the doctor said that he wasn't showing signs and symptoms of withdrawal, so that they couldn't help him. Stephen came home that day and was really, really disappointed because he was struggling with this and having a hard time, and ended up relapsing, and 3 days later died. Yeah, I didn't know about his drug use until Mother's Day, when my other son had found him. I had no idea. He just didn't, I guess it's the stereotypes, you know, you think of a certain person maybe that's doing drugs or something, and he just didn't, I guess, fit that mold, which I guess that, you know, it can happen to anyone. You know, it could be somebody in your own family. I mean, he lived right there with me. His bedroom was right next to mine, and I never had a clue about it. He worked every day, paid his bills, bought a nice car, you know, and there was no signs of it at all. He was looking for some type of Suboxone, which I know, I guess, is helping with the detox and stuff, just something to help him get through it, because he started spending a lot of time in bed and sleeping a lot and just overall not feeling well. And I had no idea as far as the drugs or the withdrawals or anything like that. I had no idea it was that painful, because from what I'm hearing now, it's a really painful process. And he was just looking for something to help him get through that process. And he had been going to some meetings, NA meetings and things like that. I had found out after, trying to find the help and get the help, and he wasn't given the help. And I just really feel that if a kid or any person is asking for help, they need the help then, not after the fact. He shouldn't have went 4 weeks without seeing a doctor. It affected my other son greatly, because he is the one that had found him both times. The morning that he passed away, my son was getting ready to go to work, and he had just went up to talk to him just like they always did, you know, and he had found him, and affected him. It was really hard for him. He goes out often to the cemetery to see him. And I think sometimes he just doesn't say anything because he just doesn't want to have to think about it. I guess my whole deal is, you know, I don't want Stephen's death to go in vain. I think that through this, I'm hoping to help other families so that they're not going to have to go through what our family went through. And it's something we'll go through forever. There's not a minute I don't think about him. It's hard for me to even walk past his bedroom, because I still have it in my mind of when I saw him there that morning. And it's going to be something hard for the rest of my life to go through.
It's a medical problem. It should be treated like any other medical problem. Problem is, it's not. The stigma there is unbelievable. And consequently, we're never going to lick the problem until we start recognizing it for what it is. But years ago, cancer had a stigma to it. You're probably too young to remember that, but it did. People didn't talk about I had cancer. It's like he did something wrong. Like I said, I got a friend that's a diabetic. He goes nuts every Super Bowl Sunday. Winds up in diabetic shock, you know. But I've never yet had a doctor say to him, well, that's it. no more insulin for you. We're going to throw you out of the program. But that'll happen if you're under I've seen local medical doctors do that. That's it. You're out. We're not going to give you Suboxone anymore. It's absolutely crazy. People relapse. It's a part of the disease.
What got me to start recovery, I actually had a few scary things happen in my life. For one, I attempted suicide, and my mother also attempted suicide as well. And I was starting to go downhill as far as behavior, starting to get into that, category where I was probably going to end up running the streets and slanging dope and whatever, And I really didn't want to go there. But at the same time, I felt like I did not have the capacity to be able to recover from that myself.
It was the money. It was the fact that I didn't have, I lost my job, not because of drugs, but just the economy being what it is. And I got hired again, but it wasn't enough pay for where I worked. And I was living with someone, my girlfriend I'm still with, and it got to the point where we were spending everything we had on drugs.
The first time, I think, wasn't the first time I was blue, like dead blue, and my boyfriend was trying to do CPR, and then he put me on the floor and hit my head, which was like really nice of him to do that. Probably gave me a concussion, and then I went to the hospital, but I woke up. Yeah. I was dreaming though. I had a dream. I was in the car and I didn't have my shoes on, and I kept saying, "Where are my shoes at?" in my dream, and I woke up and I said, "Where are my shoes at?" And he's like, "Do you know what just happened to you?" I'm like, "No." And then the second time, I got Narcan twice. Yeah, that sucked.
I hit what we call the bottom. And what I was doing at the time when I was found by a family member, my mother, I was trying to end my life by just continuously abusing my drug of choice in quantity.
You had to change everything. Like, I had to move out of my apartment. I had to break up with my boyfriend for 4 years. I had to move back into my parents. I had no job. I had no money. I couldn't talk. I didn't have any friends because I didn't really have real friends because all my friends were dealers or fellow users. I had to change my whole entire outlook on my life and on myself. So it was a long process. I had to change everything. That was my biggest thing. I tell people, I'm like, you have to change everything. You literally cannot do the same things you were doing at all. Like, I can't even watch like a movie I used to watch when I used, because I just changed everything completely, except for The Walking Dead. I still watch that.
What kept me clean was a combination of knowing that if I messed up, I could serve some serious time, and knowing that if I didn't stop what I was doing, I would probably end up dead. I would probably end up without any family members left, because the particular substance that I was doing has a really bad habit of breaking families up. And my support system was a combination of a lot of things. Spirituality, praying, trying to be positive, trying to find coping mechanisms to replace the substance, trying to find something positive that I could do that would have the same effect, except the negativity of it, of course.
You just can't afford it, and that runs up against people in your life who you might want to borrow money from, or that you're detached from maybe because you're on the drug too much. And you just have to make a decision. Do I want to, continue this, or do I want to stop and say, there are just some things that you can't do? And it's a very difficult decision to make. It's not something that you can do prematurely. I tried to stop before I eventually did. And if you're not ready to, if you're not mentally prepared to go through that, then you'll probably find that you won't succeed. So you have to really pick out a time and say, okay, this is the block of time that I'm going to go through where I know I'm going to need to be concentrating fully on recovering. And I eventually got to that point. But I mean, I was addicted for at least 3 years. I was using for 5 years, but I was probably addicted for 3 years before I decided to stop.
If you had been rich, would you have stopped?
No, definitely not. In fact, if I win the lottery tomorrow, I might start buying drugs again. The reason why I was honest there is because if I were to have said no, that would diminish the power of opiates.
Yeah.
That would basically say, oh, so he just decided to stop because of the money, and he went through that process, and then if he got money, he went through the process, so it's okay. No. It is a lifelong struggle, and you will have to deal with it for the rest of your life. You'll have to constantly make that decision every time you're approached with using. You have to go through that process every time. You can't just go through it once and then you're cured. It's got to be a no.
My parents were very supportive because they literally supported me with money and a house and stuff. Then I had my best friend came back in my life after a little while, and she was very supportive of me. She'd give me rides to meetings if I needed them. And then I had, Brick and Kia. They helped me through everything. I'd call them all the time, like too much. And then I had a lot of friends I met at meetings, just a bunch of people, that were trying to be clean and sober too. So I think it was, and my family too. They came back, my outer family, aunts and stuff, and my grandmother. And my boyfriend was also very supportive too. Even though we weren't together, we were still talking and helping each other. So that was a big deal for me because, I don't know, he went through it all with me. So it was like he knew what I was going through more personally,
When I was discovered by my mother, they didn't know what to do. My parents didn't know what to do. The first phone call, I believe, was made to our family doctor. And doctor was told about the situation and was told to get Michael immediately to a local hospital. And there I went. And from there, after my 28 days in a hospital rehab, before I got out of there, I knew I was going to go someplace else. I needed more than just a 28-day stay. And I went to a halfway house out of the area for 7 months.
I was seeing a doctor in Pennsylvania because, unfortunately, one of the things about opiate addiction is that it's so prevalent that doctors are only allowed to see 100 patients. And in the Chautauqua County area, there's a huge waiting list for doctors who can prescribe Suboxone. You have to have a special training. And so I had to actually go out of state to find a doctor who didn't have a waiting list. And now, by the way, he does. But I was lucky to see him, and he counseled me. He prescribed the medication, and I also I did go to counseling center on Jones Hill through WCA, and that's great. I have insurance. I can afford that, and you get to have these group meetings with other addicts, and they're very supportive people. Not everyone has the money to do. Not everyone has insurance for that, so that's another thing. And I was also lucky to have a loving girlfriend who supported me, didn't judge me, and family members who didn't judge me, and very lucky that I wasn't just cast out. A lot of people are cast out.
I think that a major issue that we have is that instead of looking at what's causing the addiction, we're punishing people for the addiction and not looking at how we could help them overcome it. So, for example, instead of offering a full-fledged rehabilitation center, we send the people to jail for a few months, where they learn even more criminal things. Maybe they get depressed, or maybe they feel like they're being punished for something they don't have any control over.
It's not a quick fix. It's a long-term view that has to be taken. How do we change our community so that people are less inclined to take the first drink, the first marijuana cigarette, the first painkillers? inappropriately. How are we going to change our community to give support to the youth who are the next generation coming up?
One has to be nimble, flexible, and the funding sources have to help fill in the gaps. And I will say that here locally, we've come a long way in being able to try to do that. I think we've made great strides in our area. I'm quite impressed really with what's happened. For example, the Mental Health Association has stepped up with the Resource Center to partner with them in order to do certain things like help with the jail diversion program, because I'm sure there's going to be another model that's going to be probably and possibly even bigger than this particular one, but they're starting with a small group of people, 10 people with the Jamestown, within the Jamestown court system, and being able to monitor and support and do everything they can to keep the person into a kind of a social treatment model, so that they're not going to be waiting around in jail with nothing happening for 2 weeks and not being helped. See, you have to be helped. Right away you have to be helped, and you have to be, if you wish, starting rehab right then and there. And then there's work towards a long-term rehab unit. I mean, really long-term, like up to a year. And the hope for that is that it's sustainable, so that the people who are there can have a job, and then and after perhaps some initial funding from somewhere, God knows, hopefully foundations, maybe the state, then we can have a model that is sustainable because they have a business.
We need a residential treatment center in Jamestown. And one of the questions is, how are we going to do that? Because it would take a significant commitment of resources.
Funding.
Say what?
Funding.
Yeah. Well, you got right to the point. I get bureaucratic speak. But when I say resources, because it's not just money, you need the political will, you need the support of the foundation community. Some people are going to threaten by having a residential treatment center in town, but I think if anything I learned from the Mental Health Association is that we need that. And we need to do it, and we need to do it soon. The question is, how are we going to do that? Because it's not going to be cheap. But you also need a community that says, yeah, we need this and we got to do it. Because in the long run, that's the only way to do it on the demand side.
We're going to continue to work hard at it on our own from a law enforcement standpoint, together with other law enforcement agencies, but also continuing to support those in the community, in the educational sector, the church sector, the not-for-profit sector, support the county through the health department, the hospital, that are working on the counseling and the treatment front, where really we need a robust effort in that area, along with the robust effort in law enforcement that I think that we have here.
Do you have hope?
In general, or with this situation?
With this situation.
Absolutely. I think I said to you, I've never seen a little city, if it sets its mind to get it done, despite all the obstacles, we will get it done. And we have. Thing after thing after thing. I can point to so many things in this community where we clearly decided it was a problem that needed to be addressed, and we went out and did it. Yeah, absolutely. If any town can do it, it's us.
If we can get involved and get enough people involved in this, that it's going to make a difference. And I think people just need to be more aware about it. They're reading things in the paper and seeing things and stuff, and just not really realizing how close to home it really can hit. I mean, we're just an average family, at high class, not low class, and it happened to us. So if it happens to us, it can happen to anyone.
I mean, I tend to be a positive person, and that's our approach. We get asked this a lot. Why do you guys keep doing it? Because they let some of these people out, and it's a continuous cycle. It's our job, and it's our chosen profession, and it's what we do. We enforce laws. We try to stay extremely positive. We're human. It gets frustrating sometimes, but we take it as a challenge. And when some of these guys are out on bail, or they get released, and we know they go right to the top of the list, and we go back and we target them. Yeah, I have hope.
I think there's a lot of things that we could change. I think we could use a lot more support and help and places to go. But people need to realize that there's not just the idea of just, oh, I'm addicted, I need to go to detox, I need to go to rehab, because I didn't do that in the long run. I didn't go to detox and rehab. But you have to have somebody telling you can do it. You know, I've been here. You know, I think people who are been through it can really help other people. Whereas somebody just going to like a professional and they're just sitting behind a desk and they're like, blah, 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 you know, you need to do this. You don't want to hear it. You just don't at all.
Oh, yeah. I always have hope. I never give up hope. Never going to quit. No. No, it's a battle. It is truly a battle worth fighting. When you do this, you just started it today. Hopefully you're going to meet a lot of these people. You'll hang around. You'll find out what it's really, who they are, and who their families are. Good people. And so I never give up hope.
You know, I honestly do. I honestly do have hope that we can fix the gaps here. There's a lot of people with fire in the belly for this around here. That's what you need for any good cause. You have to have somebody leading it, somebody who's inspired to help. And I think with the increasing recognition that this is not a disease of a certain group of people. The Mental Health Association has just mentioned that their average client is a 23-year-old woman who is from the middle class or upper middle class. I was fascinated by that statistic. I think the point, though, is that every age, every race, every social strata is involved with this problem.
I think that being that I was given the opportunity to recover, I believe that the best thing that I can do is help other people recover as well. I definitely have hope. And I definitely believe we will eventually, with enough effort. Now, you can't get rid of the problem completely, but you could at least try to deal with it professionally and in the right way. And that's what we're trying to do here, is deal with the issue and go with you can't expect a treatment to work for everybody. And that's what we're trying to address here. You can't use the herd mentality, as you call it, and expect one treatment because it works for him, it's going to work for him and him and him. Everybody is different. And I believe that everybody should have a chance to change. Everybody should have a second chance. And I'm proud to be able to help with that, because it makes me feel good that other people can change too, and that other people can live a better life.
I absolutely have hope. And so I'm committed to that, because I truly believe that people are coming together in a way that we haven't done in a long time in this community. And we had a meeting just yesterday, and we had a new member come to the coalition meeting who just got everybody going again and got everybody excited about the possibility of the reach of the coalition.
The issue is so complicated that we can't pinpoint one specific or even two specific areas, like, oh, it's the dealer's fault, or oh, we need to get the drug addict into the methadone clinic and everything will be solved. There's a whole issue, a whole range of issues that are causing this problem, and until we face them and start to really talk about, what motivates, why would someone do that? Why would someone put something polluting into their body? What would make them do that in the first place? Where do you have to be in your life? And because it is such a range of demographics, it doesn't just affect poor people or minorities or white people. It affects, white, black, rich, poor, everyone. Okay, so why? What's causing this? And we need to get to the bottom of that before we can tackle this. And I also think we should stop demonizing addicts. That's not gonna help anyone.
We need to move it up to the priority, though, because you look at somebody even like the National Comedy Center. We still got a lot of things to do before that gets done, but I mean, I just see so many things all the time that we've done because we decided we were going to do it, and it doesn't matter what the obstacles were. I know the train station took 10 years. We just kept at it. I mean, we're kind of stubborn around here. If we decide it's important, we'll get it done. We need to do that with this, and it can't take 10 years. But yeah, absolutely. I think if everybody gets behind this, we can get it done. I mean, that's one of the reasons I moved here. That's one of the reasons I stayed here. Because I've never seen a community respond to things as well as this community does across the board. It just needs doing. Let's do it. Let's get to work.
Of course I have hope. If I didn't have hope, I wouldn't be here. The day that we give up hope is the day that we should exit from the process and allow somebody else to step in. There's always got to be hope, and there is. I've watched many people write this city off over a variety of issues, over different eras. It's lost. It'll never be the same that it was before. It's a lost cause. And those that are all too willing to relegate this city and this region to the scrap heap of history, beware. You're going to be the one that's surprised. You're the one that's lost, because I've seen this community bounce back, been knocked down and bounce back on more occasions as possible.
Do you have hope we can change it?
Yes. Talking to an addict, I want what I want, and I want it now. And I realized that it wasn't the way to go then, and it's not the way to go about it now. What is the way? Knowledge, informing people, getting the word out there that we have an issue here, we have a problem. Young people are dying. It seems to be within a certain age gap, age range, excuse me. But the thing is, any drug does not discriminate against any age, any ethnicity, or anything. Whether you're 14 or 94, anyone's a candidate. And we need to put something in place soon so, we don't lose more loved ones. Over the last 7 years in sobriety, I've gone to, let's just say I stopped counting how many funerals I've gone to. It's not even in the double digits, in 3 digits. In 7 years, over 100 funerals. I don't want to go to funerals for that reason anymore.
And my boyfriend was also very supportive too. Even though we weren't together, we were still talking and helping each other. So that was a big deal for me.
He didn't get help.
He did. He's better now. We're together. Okay. He's got my ring on layaway. You can edit that out, but I'm just saying.